The large circular control room of Galactic Council Monitoring Station 7 hummed with quiet activity. Located at the edge of the Orion Arm, the station served as an early detection system for this sector of space. Most days were uneventful, just routine scans and occasional merchant traffic. Today was different. Commander Jae-min sat at the main command station, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the soft glow of the monitors. As the senior Loraxian officer assigned to this remote post, he had seen many strange things during his 50 years of service. The Loraxians were known throughout the galaxy for their careful, methodical approach to new situations. Their three eyes allowed them to process visual information from multiple angles simultaneously, making them excellent observers. "Sir, I am detecting an unusual energy signature," said Officer Do-hyun, a slender Rigelian whose iridescent skin shimmered under the control room lights. Do-hyun had transferred to the station only 2 months ago. His species was known for their superior sensory abilities, particularly when it came to detecting energy patterns. "What kind of signature?" asked Jae-min, turning his center eye toward the junior officer while keeping his other eyes on his own screens. "Unlike anything in our database," replied Do-hyun. His long fingers moved quickly across his console. "It appears to be a vessel, but these readings are troubling." The main view screen changed to show a distant object moving through space. Behind it trailed what looked like a massive plume of energy. "Magnify," ordered Jae-min. The image zoomed in, revealing what was clearly an artificial vessel of unfamiliar design. Behind it burned a bright, continuous stream of what appeared to be fire. "That cannot be right," muttered Jae-min. "Run a diagnostic on the sensors." "I already did," said Do-hyun. "Twice. The sensors are functioning correctly." By now, several other officers had noticed the unusual readings and had gathered around the main view screen. Officer Jin Soo, the station's xenobiologist, adjusted her viewing lens. "The vessel appears to be deliberately emitting that energy trail," she observed. "Perhaps it is their method of propulsion." "Impossible," said Security Chief Tae-ho, his thick armored plates clicking as he moved closer to the screen. "No sensible species would use fire as propulsion. The heat would melt any known hull material." Yet the evidence was right before them. The unknown ship continued its steady course, trailing what could only be described as a massive jet of flame. "Are there life signs?" asked Jae-min. Do-hyun ran another scan. "Yes. Multiple biological signatures. They appear to be inside the vessel, in what logic suggests would be the habitable sections. So they are not dead," mused Jae-min. "Yet they travel in a ship that is clearly on fire." Medical Officer Subin joined the growing crowd of concerned officers. Her species, the Meldarians, were known throughout the galaxy as talented medical practitioners. "Perhaps they are unaware," she suggested. Some form of system malfunction they have not detected?" "That seems most likely," agreed Jae-min. "No rational spacefaring species would deliberately design a ship to emit fire, prepare emergency protocols. We must warn them and offer assistance." The control room burst into activity. Subin hurried to prepare medical supplies for potential burn victims. Tae-ho assembled a security team equipped with flame-suppressant technology. Communications Officer Han-ji began broadcasting emergency signals. "Toward the approaching vessel. Unknown ship. This is Galactic Council Monitoring Station 7. We have detected what appears to be a catastrophic fire aboard your vessel. Please respond." They waited anxiously for a reply. Surely the crew must be in panic, perhaps fighting for their lives against the spreading flames. After several tense moments, the communication system activated. A calm voice replied in perfect galactic standard. "This is Captain Hyun-woo of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We acknowledge your transmission. Thank you for your concern." The officers exchanged confused glances. The voice did not sound distressed at all. "Captain Hyun-woo," Jae-min spoke urgently. "Our sensors indicate your ship is experiencing a severe thermal event. In simple terms, your engines appear to be on fire. We have emergency response teams ready to assist you." There was a pause, and then a sound came through the speakers that none of them recognized. It was rhythmic, Musical almost, but unlike any communication signal they had encountered before. Later, they would learn it was human laughter. "I appreciate your concern, Commander," replied Captain Hyunwoo. "But what you are detecting is simply our ion drive operating at standard capacity. The thermal signature is a normal function of our propulsion system." The control room fell silent as the officers tried to process this information. "You mean," Jamin struggled to find the right words, "your ship is designed to emit fire?" "In a manner of speaking, yes," confirmed Captain Hyunwoo. "Humans have utilized controlled combustion for propulsion since our earliest ventures into space. The current system is actually quite refined compared to our earlier rockets." The officers stared at each other in disbelief. The concept was so foreign, so contrary to all known spacefaring principles, that they could barely comprehend it. Most advanced civilizations had developed cold propulsion systems specifically to avoid the dangers of heat and flame in the vacuum of space. "Captain," said Jamin carefully, "would you be willing to dock with our station? The Galactic Council protocols require us to verify the safety of any new vessel design entering our space, and frankly, we are very curious about your species." "We would be happy to," replied Captain Hyunwoo. "We are on a mission of exploration and peaceful contact. This would be an excellent opportunity for cultural exchange." "Very good," said Jamin, still not entirely convinced that the situation wasn't an emergency. "Please follow the guidance. Coordinates we are sending now. Our docking bay is designed to accommodate vessels of various configurations." "Acknowledged. We will arrive in approximately 3 hours at our current speed." As the communication ended, the control room erupted in excited discussion. "A species that deliberately uses fire for space travel," marveled Jinsu. "Their biology must be fascinating. Perhaps they evolved on a high-temperature world." "Or they are simply reckless," countered Taeho. "We should maintain safety protocols until we know more." Jamin silenced them with a raised hand. "Whatever they are, they represent something completely new. A first contact situation with a previously unknown spacefaring civilization. All standard protocols will be followed." He turned to Communications Officer Hanji. "Send word to the Galactic Council headquarters. Inform them we have made contact with a new species called humans who appear to have a very unusual relationship with fire." As the message was sent, Jamin watched the approaching ship on the view screen. The flames trailing behind it no longer seemed like a sign of disaster, but rather a bold announcement of the arrival of a species unlike any the Council had encountered before. The next few hours would reveal just how different humans truly were. The main meeting hall of Galactic Council Monitoring Station 7 had been prepared for first contact. The large circular room featured a round table in the center, symbolizing equality among all species. The station staff had worked for hours to ensure that everything was perfect. This was, after all, a historic moment. Commander Jae-min stood near the airlock, his 3 eyes blinking nervously. Beside him, Security Chief Tae-ho kept his hand close to his weapon, though he had been instructed to appear welcoming. The rest of the senior staff lined up in order of rank, each wearing their formal uniforms. "Remember," Jamin reminded them quietly, "we represent the entire Galactic Council. First impressions are crucial." The airlock sensor flashed green, indicating that pressure had equalized. With a soft hiss, the doors began to slide open. The station crew held their breath. Captain Hyunwoo stepped through first. He was shorter than most of the Council species, with a frame that suggested both strength and flexibility. His skin was a light brown color, with no scales, fur, or other features common to many galactic species. Behind him came 3 other humans. A tall, lean male introduced as Science Officer Ji-ho, a stocky, broad-shouldered male who was Engineer Minsu, and a smaller female with long dark hair who served as Cultural Liaison Yunji. The most shocking thing to the Council representatives was not the humans' appearance, but what they were doing. They walked into the meeting hall wearing no environmental protection whatsoever. Despite the station being kept at a cool 10 degrees Celsius, which most Council species found comfortable, but which should have been uncomfortably cold for most carbon-based life forms, Even more alarming, the female human, Yunji, casually reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. With a flick of her thumb, the device produced an actual flame. The council members instinctively stepped back, some making involuntary sounds of alarm. "Weapon!" barked Taeho, his hand moving to draw his own device. Yunji quickly closed the flame-producing device, looking startled. "I'm sorry, this isn't a weapon. It's just a lighter." Captain Hyunwoo stepped forward, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "Please forgive my cultural liaison. On our world, it's common to light what we call cigarettes before formal meetings. It's a social custom. We meant no offense." Jaemin's crest fluttered with anxiety, but he forced his voice to remain calm. "You deliberately create fire for social purposes?" The humans exchanged glances that suggested they found the question strange. "Yes," replied Eunji. "Many humans smoke tobacco leaves as a form of relaxation. It's a very old tradition." "Medical." Officer Subin stepped forward, her scanner discreetly activated. "You inhale smoke, voluntarily?" "Some of us do," said Yunji. "Though health concerns have reduced the practice over the centuries." "Fascinating," murmured Subin, studying her readings. "Their respiratory systems must have unique filtration capabilities." Commander Jaemin gestured toward the round table. "Perhaps we should begin our formal meeting. We have many questions about your species." The humans took their seats on one side of the table, while the council representatives sat opposite them. Officer Jinsu, the xenobiologist, could barely contain her excitement. "Your ship," she began eagerly. "The propulsion system that appears to emit fire. How does it function without melting your vessel?" Engineer Minsu smiled, clearly pleased to discuss his area of expertise. "Our hulls are designed with specialized heat-resistant materials. The engine combustion chamber is reinforced with ceramics that can withstand temperatures up to 3,000 degrees Celsius." The council representatives glanced at each other in astonishment. Most of their ships were designed to avoid heat entirely. "But why use a system that generates such extreme heat?" asked Jaemin. "Surely cold propulsion would be safer." "It's a matter of efficiency and history," explained Minsu. "Humans have always used fire and combustion. Our earliest vehicles used internal combustion engines burning fossil fuels. Our first space rockets were essentially controlled explosions directed downward. The ion drive you observed is actually quite advanced and clean by our standards." "You use explosions deliberately?" Taeho's voice contained poorly concealed horror. "Of course," said Minsu, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "Controlled explosion is the foundation of human engineering." The council members struggled to process this information. Most species in the galaxy had developed technology specifically designed to avoid heat, flame, and especially explosions in the vacuum of space. Science Officer Ji-ho seemed to sense their discomfort. "Perhaps it would help if I explained our planet of origin. Earth has abundant oxygen in its atmosphere and countless natural sources of combustion. Lightning strikes frequently cause forest fires. Volcanoes erupt, spewing molten rock. Our ancestors learned to control fire nearly 300,000 years ago, and it became essential to our survival and development." Jin-Soo leaned forward, fascinated. "So your species evolved alongside fire? You adapted to it rather than avoiding it?" "Exactly," said Ji-ho. "Fire gave us warmth in cold climates, protection from predators, the ability to cook food which increased nutrient absorption, and eventually, the foundation for all our technology." "But the danger," began Jaemin. Captain Hyunwoo smiled. "Risk assessment and management is one of humanity's specialties. We don't ignore the dangers of fire, we respect them and develop technologies to control them." To demonstrate, he nodded to Eunji, who once again produced her lighter. This time, the council members watched more curiously than fearfully as she created a small controlled flame. "This simple device contains fuel and a spark mechanism," she explained. "It creates fire on demand, but only when activated, and only in a controlled manner. We carry these casually in our pockets." "In your pockets?" echoed Do-hyun, the Rigelian sensor officer who had first detected the human ship. Next to your bodies? Yes, said Yoonji simply. We trust our technology. As the meeting continued, the humans shared more about their relationship with fire and heat. They showed holographic images of Earth cities at night, illuminated by millions of lights powered by various forms of energy conversion. They described cooking methods that deliberately applied flame to food. They explained how controlled combustion had taken them from primitive shelters to the stars. Throughout the presentation, the council representatives gradually moved from fear to cautious fascination. These humans were clearly not reckless. They had simply evolved along a completely different technological path, one that embraced rather than avoided the very elements that most galactic species feared. We have brought samples of our food, said Captain Hyunwoo as the formal meeting drew to a close. With your permission, we would like to prepare a traditional meal for you tomorrow. It would involve a small contained cooking fire. The council members exchanged nervous glances. The idea of deliberately creating fire aboard the station for non-emergency purposes was unprecedented. But curiosity was a powerful force. Very well, said Commander Jamin after a moment's consideration. We will arrange for a suitable location with appropriate safety measures. As the humans returned to their ship to rest, the council staff gathered to discuss their impressions. They carry fire in their pockets, whispered Taeho, still unable to fully process the concept. Their ships run on controlled explosions. What kind of species have we encountered? A fascinating one, replied Jinsu, reviewing her notes excitedly. One that took a completely different evolutionary and technological path than any we've encountered before. Commander Jamin looked thoughtful. We should inform Council headquarters immediately. These humans represent something entirely new. Their relationship with fire could be either a tremendous asset to the galactic community or— He left the sentence unfinished, but everyone understood. Any species that comfortable with fire could be dangerous indeed. Little did they know that the next day would bring an even more startling demonstration of humanity's unusual relationship with flame. 3 station days had passed since the humans first came aboard Galactic Council Monitoring Station 7. The initial tension had gradually eased as both sides learned more about each other. The humans had been given temporary quarters in the diplomatic wing, and various teams had been formed to exchange scientific, cultural, and technological information. Commander Jamin sat in his office, reviewing the reports with a mixture of fascination and concern. The humans continued to surprise and occasionally alarm the station personnel with their casual relationship with heat and fire. Just yesterday, Engineer Minsu had offered to help repair a malfunctioning power coupling by using what he called a soldering iron, a tool that deliberately heated metal to melting point. The station engineers had politely declined, preferring their cold fusion bonding methods. The door chime interrupted his thoughts. Enter, he called. Medical Officer Subin stepped in, her datapad clutched in her slender hands. Commander, I have completed my initial analysis of human physiology, she said, taking a seat across from him. And, prompted Jamin, they are remarkable, she said, her voice filled with professional excitement. Their bodies operate at a much lower temperature than most carbon-based life forms we've encountered, averaging just 37 degrees Celsius. Yet they have exceptional heat tolerance compared to species with similar biology. Explain, said Jamin, leaning forward. Their skin contains specialized glands that secrete water to cool their bodies. They call it sweating. This allows them to function in environments that would cause heat stroke in most comparable species. Additionally, they have evolved pain receptors that specifically warn them about dangerous levels of heat, allowing them to live alongside fire without constant injury. Jamin was about to respond when the station alarm system suddenly activated. Red emergency lights began flashing throughout the office as the automated system announced in multiple languages. Fire detected in Section 7. This is not a drill. Evacuate immediately. Fire containment protocols activated. Jamin leapt to his feet, his crest rising in alarm. Section 7, that's the maintenance bay we allocated to the humans for their cooking demonstration. He and Subin rushed from the office, joining the flow of station personnel moving through the corridors. The station's emergency systems had already engaged, sealing bulkheads and adjusting airflow to contain any potential fire. As they approached Section 7, they found a crowd of various council species huddled at a safe distance from the sealed doors. Security Chief Tejo was organizing his team, distributing flame suppressant equipment. "Report," demanded Jae-min. "Fire alarm triggered inside the maintenance bay," Tejo replied tersely. "Automatic containment systems activated immediately. We're preparing to enter and assess the situation." "The humans," said Subin, looking around anxiously. "Where are the humans?" A young Andromedan technician stepped forward, his tentacles quivering with agitation. "They're still inside. When the alarm sounded, everyone ran out as per protocol. But the humans, they ran in." "They went toward the fire?" Jaemin's 3 eyes widened in shock. "Are they suicidal?" "We must rescue them," declared Subin. "Override the bulkhead seal." "That would break containment protocols," Tejo argued. "The fire could spread." "If the humans are in danger, we cannot wait," Jae-min decided. "Override the seal, but have suppressant teams ready." Tejo reluctantly entered his security code. Into the door panel. With a hiss, the bulkhead seal disengaged and the doors slowly slid open. The security team raised their suppressant devices, ready to combat the expected flames. What they saw instead left them frozen in confusion. All 4 humans were inside the maintenance bay, gathered around a flat metal disc placed on a stand. On top of this disc, a small, controlled fire burned steadily. Various food items were arranged around this fire, and the humans were using metal implements to move these items over the flames. The air was filled with unfamiliar but strangely appealing smells. Captain Hyunwoo looked up in surprise as the doors opened. "Hello," he said casually. "Is something wrong?" For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Tejo found his voice, though it came out higher than usual. "The alarm. There's a fire emergency." The humans looked at each other, and then Engineer Min-soo slapped his forehead in what appeared to be a gesture of sudden understanding. "Oh, the alarm. I'm so sorry," he said. "The smoke probably triggered your sensors. We cleared it with station control to use this maintenance bay for our cooking demonstration, but I guess someone forgot to disable the emergency detection systems." That's the cooking fire you mentioned?" asked Jae-min, stepping cautiously into the room, his eyes fixed on the controlled flames. "Yes," said Cultural Liaison Yoonji with a smile. "This is a traditional cooking method we call barbecue. We're grilling various meats and vegetables over an open flame." The council security team remained poised with their suppressants, clearly uncertain whether to treat this as an emergency or not. "It's perfectly safe," assured Science Officer Jiho, pointing to a small device sitting nearby. "We have our own fire suppression system right here if needed, though we've never had to use it during cooking. Humans have been cooking with fire for about 300,000 years. We're quite good at controlling it." Slowly, cautiously, more of the council staff entered the room, drawn by curiosity, now that the immediate fear was subsiding. The smell coming from the cooking food was unlike anything they had encountered before. "Would you like to try some?" offered Captain Hyunwoo, holding out a plate with small pieces of seared meat. "This is bulgogi, a traditional Earth Korean dish. The meat is from your food synthesizers, but we've marinated it in our own spices." Jaemin hesitated, then stepped forward. As the commanding officer, it was his duty to show courage. He carefully took a small piece of the food and placed it in his mouth. The flavor was extraordinary, rich and complex in a way that station food never was. The cooking process had transformed the synthesized protein into something entirely new. "This is quite good," he admitted, surprised by his own reaction. One by one, other council members cautiously approached and accepted samples of the human food. Medical Officer Subin discreetly scanned each item before trying it herself, then nodded in approval. "The cooking process has broken down certain proteins, making them more digestible," she observed. "And the flavor compounds are fascinating. Our food synthesizers could never create this complexity." As the initial shock wore off, the atmosphere in the maintenance bay gradually shifted from emergency response to impromptu cultural exchange. The humans continued cooking, explaining each dish and its significance in their culture. They demonstrated how different foods required different cooking times and temperatures, revealing a sophisticated understanding of heat management that impressed even Tae-ho. "You deliberately burn the outside while leaving the inside less cooked?" he asked, watching Ji-ho turn a piece of meat on the grill. "Exactly," Ji-ho explained. "The caramelization of the sugars on the surface creates new flavor compounds, while the interior remains juicy. It's all about controlling the heat precisely." By the time the cooking demonstration ended, most of the station staff had sampled the human food, and the emergency had been completely forgotten. Commander Jamin had even authorized the deactivation of the fire alarm in Section 7 for the remainder of the humans' stay. As the gathering dispersed, Jamin pulled Captain Hyunwoo aside. "I must apologize for the misunderstanding," he said. "In all my years in space, I've never encountered a species that would deliberately create fire for food preparation aboard a station. Our protocols weren't designed with humans in mind." Hyunwoo smiled. "No apology needed, Commander. Cultural differences are to be expected. Though I must admit, I'm surprised that no species in the Galactic Council cooks with fire. How do you prepare your food?" "Chemical treatment and molecular restructuring," replied Jamin. "Cold processes only. The risk of fire in space has always been considered too great." "Well," said Hyunwoo thoughtfully, "perhaps there's something our species can teach the galaxy about managing risk rather than just avoiding it." As Commander Jamin returned to his quarters that night, he found himself reflecting on the human captain's words. There was wisdom there, and perhaps a philosophy that the Council had not considered in its long history. The incident would be recorded in his report to Council headquarters not as an emergency, but as a significant cultural insight. Humans, it seemed, had much to offer the galaxy, starting with their unique relationship with fire. News about the humans spread quickly throughout Galactic Council Monitoring Station 7. The cooking incident had transformed from a potential emergency into the most discussed topic on the station. Council members who had missed the event requested demonstrations, while those who had attended spoke of the experience with growing fascination rather than fear. Commander Jamin found himself overwhelmed with messages from Council headquarters. The initial report of a new species with unusual fire-handling capabilities had caught the attention of the highest levels of governance. "A special research committee has been formed," he informed his senior staff during their morning briefing. "Their purpose is to study humanity's unique relationship with fire and heat. Medical Officer Subin will lead our station's contribution to this research." Subin looked both honored and slightly nervous at this announcement. "I have already begun preliminary studies," she said. "Human Science Officer Ji-ho has been very helpful in explaining their physiology and history." "What have you learned so far?" asked Officer Jin-soo, the xenobiologist, her recording device ready to capture every detail. Subin activated her datapad, displaying a series of images and charts. "The findings are remarkable," she began. "Humans evolved on a planet with abundant oxygen and combustible materials. Their world experiences natural fire events regularly. Lightning strikes ignite forests, volcanoes spew molten rock, and various biological processes create heat. Yet they survived," murmured Do-hyun, the sensor officer who had first detected the human ship. "More than survived," corrected Subin. "They adapted. Their earliest ancestors used fire for warmth in cold climates. This gave them the ability to expand into regions that would otherwise be too hostile. They used fire to cook food, which broke down plant fibers and proteins, making them more digestible and nutritious. This improved diet may have contributed to their brain development." Security Chief Tae-ho looked thoughtful. "So fire literally shaped their evolution?" "Precisely," said Subin. "But what's truly fascinating is how deeply fire is embedded in their psychology and culture. Ji-ho has shared historical records showing that every human civilization independently discovered and utilized fire. Many had religious practices centered around flames. They viewed fire as both destructive and purifying, as a tool and a weapon." "Commander." Jamin considered this information. "This may explain their comfort with heat-based technology, but it doesn't fully address the risks they seem willing to accept. Their ships deliberately use combustion for propulsion. They cook with open flames even in space. This goes beyond adaptation to active embrace. That's the most interesting part, said Subin, changing the display to show a series of human historical images. Humans have a long history of what they call calculated risk, the deliberate acceptance of danger when the benefits outweigh the potential consequences. The images showed humans engaged in various activities that made the council members shift uncomfortably in their seats, scaling mountains without safety equipment, diving into ocean depths, and even early spacecraft that were little more than controlled explosions with humans sitting atop them. They apply this same principle to fire, Subin continued. Instead of only avoiding fire, they developed technologies to control it. They created specialized professions dedicated to managing fire hazards. Like their cooking methods, offered Jinsu. Yes, but far more extensive, replied Subin. They have what they call firefighters, individuals specially trained to approach fires while others flee. These firefighters enter burning structures to rescue others and stop flames from spreading. The council members stared at the images of humans in protective gear rushing toward massive fires. They run toward fire. Teho's voice contained equal parts disbelief and unwilling respect. Voluntarily? As a profession? Confirmed Subin. They consider it honorable work. Do-hyun leaned forward, his iridescent skin reflecting the light from the display. What about their ships? Do all human vessels use fire-based propulsion? According to Jiho, yes, said Subin. Though they've refined the process over centuries. Their earliest spacecraft used chemical rockets, essentially controlled explosions. Modern ships like the Prometheus use ion drives, which are more efficient but still generate significant heat. The flames we observed are a byproduct of their propulsion system, carefully channeled away from the ship. Commander Jamin studied the images with his 3 eyes, trying to understand the human mindset. So they haven't evolved past their dependence on fire? With all their technology, they still rely on combustion? It's not dependence, came a voice from the doorway. Captain Hyun-woo stood there, having arrived for the scheduled joint briefing. It's choice. The council members turned, some looking embarrassed at being caught discussing humans in their absence. Please join us, Captain, said Jamin quickly. We were just reviewing Medical Officer Subin's research on human evolution and fire usage. Hyun-woo took a seat at the table. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to clarify something important. Humans could have developed cold propulsion systems similar to yours. We understand the principles, but fire and heat offer certain advantages in efficiency, power, and resource utilization that we've chosen to work with rather than abandon. But the risk, said Teho, still struggling with the concept, is managed, not eliminated, replied Hyun-woo. That's a fundamental difference in philosophy, I think. From what I've observed, council species tend to avoid risks entirely when possible. Humans assess risks, develop safeguards, and proceed when the potential benefits outweigh the dangers. The room fell silent as the council members considered this perspective. It was alien to their way of thinking, yet they could not deny that humans had successfully built an interstellar civilization using these principles. Jin-soo broke the silence. Captain, Officer Subin mentioned that humans have cultural practices involving fire. Could you explain some of these? Hyun-woo smiled. Of course. Humans use fire in countless ways beyond survival and technology. We set controlled fires in our dwellings. We call them fireplaces, purely for aesthetic and comfort purposes. We light small flames called candles during special meals, religious ceremonies, or romantic encounters. We launch explosive devices into our atmosphere that burst into colorful patterns for visual entertainment during celebrations. For entertainment? Echoed Do-hyun incredulously. You create explosions for pleasure? We call them fireworks, said Hyun-woo. They're quite beautiful. We've brought recordings if you'd like to see them. Commander Jamin nodded, his scientific curiosity overcoming his instinctive caution. We would. But first I must ask something that has been troubling me. Given your species' comfort with fire, are humans immune to its effects? Can you touch flames without harm? Not at all, Hyun-woo replied seriously. We burn quite easily, and painfully. Fire can kill us just as it would most carbon-based life. The difference isn't physical immunity, but rather our approach to managing the danger. He held out his arm, pulling back his sleeve to reveal a faint discoloration on his skin. This is a burn scar from when I was a child. I touched a hot cooking surface. The pain taught me respect for heat, but not fear of it. That's the essence of humanity's relationship with fire. Respect without paralysis. Caution without avoidance. The Council research team spent the rest of the day reviewing human records about fire usage throughout their history. They watched recordings of earth ceremonies involving flame, studied the evolution of human firefighting techniques, and examined the sophisticated heat management systems of the Prometheus. By the end of their session, even the most cautious Council members had begun to see fire differently, not merely as a danger to be avoided at all costs, but as a powerful force that could be harnessed if properly respected and controlled. As Commander Jamin prepared his report for Council headquarters, he included a quote from Captain Hyunwoo that seemed to capture the essence of this revelation. Without risk, there is no progress. It was a simple statement, yet it challenged the foundation of Council philosophy that had evolved over thousands of years of spacefaring civilization. The implications were profound, not just for technology, but for governance, exploration, and cultural exchange. The humans, with their peculiar relationship with fire, had ignited something new in the Galactic Council, a spark of reconsideration about the nature of risk itself. 6 months had passed since the human vessel Prometheus first appeared at Galactic Council Monitoring Station 7. In that time, 2 more human ships had arrived, the Helios and the Phoenix, both named after fire-related concepts from Earth mythology. A formal cultural exchange program had been established, and humans had begun to integrate into the wider galactic community. Commander Jamin sat in his office, reviewing the latest reports from Council headquarters. The research into human fire management techniques had sparked interest throughout the galaxy. Several Council species had cautiously begun experimenting with controlled heat applications in their technology, though none had yet embraced fire. With the same comfort as humans, his communication console chimed urgently. "Commander," came the voice of Communications Officer Hanji. "Priority message from Cygnus Sector. The mining colony on Vesta Prime is under attack." Jamin's crest rose in alarm. "Display details." The screen filled with emergency data. A Zoraxian warship, part of a separatist faction that rejected Council authority, had launched a surprise attack on the mining colony. The facility's defenses had been quickly overwhelmed, and a distress signal had been sent out before communications were cut. "Alert all Council vessels in the sector," ordered Jamin. "Prepare emergency response protocols." Within minutes, his senior staff had gathered in the command center. The situation looked grim. The Cygnus sector was relatively remote, and the nearest Council military vessels were at least 2 days away at maximum speed. "The mining colony houses over 3,000 workers," reported Officer Jin-Soo, studying the facility schematics, mostly Rigelians and Andromedans. "What about civilian evacuation?" asked Jamin. Security Chief Taeho shook his head grimly. "The Zoraxians have disabled the main docking bays, and there's another problem." He highlighted a section of the data feed. "The attackers damaged the atmospheric processors. The entire habitat is filling with toxic gases and heating to dangerous levels." A heavy silence fell over the command center. The combination of heat and toxic atmosphere meant that standard Council rescue protocols were inadequate. Their ships could not safely approach without risking their crews, and environmental suits would quickly fail in such conditions. "By the time our military vessels arrive," said Medical Officer Subin quietly, "everyone inside will be dead." "What about the human ships?" The suggestion came from Do Hyun, the sensor officer. All eyes turned to him in surprise. "They handle heat differently than we do. Could they help?" Jamin considered this. "Contact Captain Hyun-woo immediately." Within minutes, the human captain appeared on the main screen. Jamin explained the situation as quickly and clearly as possible. "The environmental conditions are extremely hazardous," he concluded. "Heat levels are rising rapidly and the atmosphere is becoming toxic. Our vessels cannot safely approach for at least 2 days, and by then, send us the coordinates." Interrupted, Captain Hyunwoo, his expression serious. The Prometheus and her sister ships will handle this. You understand the danger? Pressed Jamin. The temperature inside the habitat is already approaching 60 degrees Celsius and rising. The atmospheric mixture contains numerous toxic compounds. We understand, replied Hyunwoo firmly. This is exactly the kind of situation humans are equipped to handle. Transmit all the data you have. We'll depart immediately. As the communication ended, the council staff exchanged hopeful but uncertain glances. Can they really help? Asked Jinsu. Even with their heat tolerance, these conditions are extreme. We're about to find out, said Jamin. The command center tracked the 3 human vessels as they broke orbit and accelerated toward the Cygnus sector. Their propulsion systems flared brightly, pushing the ships to speeds that surprised even the council engineers. The Prometheus led the formation, its ion drive burning hotter than ever before. Remarkable, murmured Do-hyun, monitoring their progress. They've modified their engines to increase output. The heat signature is nearly double what we initially recorded. They're pushing their technology to the limit, observed Tai-ho. Taking a calculated risk, as they would say. 6 hours later, the human ships arrived at Vesta Prime. The council staff watched through long-range sensors as the vessels approached the damaged mining colony. The Zeraxian warship had departed after completing its attack, leaving the facility in critical condition. They're establishing orbit, reported Do-hyun. But how will they assist? The docking bays are disabled. The answer came moments later, as smaller craft launched from the human vessels. These shuttles approached the mining facility directly, maneuvering through debris and damaged sections to reach emergency airlocks. They're sending people inside? Jamin couldn't hide his disbelief. In these conditions? What happened next astonished the watching council members. Teams of humans in specialized protective gear emerged from the shuttles and physically entered the burning station. These were not standard spacesuits, but appeared to be designed specifically for extreme heat and toxic environments. Firefighters, realized Subin, remembering her research. They're sending in their firefighters. For the next several hours, the council staff monitored the rescue operation with growing amazement. The human teams moved through the facility with practiced efficiency, locating survivors and evacuating them to the shuttles. Other teams worked to contain the spreading fires and stabilize critical systems. The humans' expertise with fire wasn't just cultural, it was tactical. They understood how flames moved in enclosed spaces, how to create fire breaks, how to use pressure differentials to their advantage. What the council saw as an overwhelming disaster, the humans treated as a challenging but manageable crisis. They're using portable cooling units to create safe pathways, noted Jinsu, studying the sensor readings, and some kind of chemical spray to suppress the flames. They're not just evacuating, they're actually fighting the fire. One by one, shuttles departed from the mining colony, carrying survivors to the waiting human ships. Meanwhile, the engineering teams continued working inside, gradually bringing the critical systems back under control. After 20 hours of continuous effort, the human vessels transmitted a status report. All survivors had been evacuated, and the facility's atmospheric processors had been partially repaired. The fires were contained and emergency systems were functioning at minimal capacity. When the first council military vessels finally arrived 2 days later, they found the situation stabilized. The human ships remained in orbit, their hulls visibly scorched and blackened from their close approach to the damaged facility. 1 week later, a formal ceremony was held aboard Galactic Council headquarters. Captain Hyunwoo and his crew stood before the assembled council representatives, receiving the highest commendation the council could bestow. Your actions saved over 2,000 lives, stated the council president. You risked your own ships and crews in conditions that we considered unsurvivable. The council extends its deepest gratitude. Hyunwoo accepted the commendation with a respectful nod. We did what any human would have done in the situation. Commander Jamin, now promoted to Council Liaison for Human Affairs, stepped forward. There is something I must ask. something many of us still struggle to understand. Why did you risk so much for people you barely knew? Hyunwoo looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Because we could help, he said simply. Humans have been running into fires to save others for as long as we've understood fire itself. It's what we do. The council chamber fell silent, absorbing this profound statement of human values. Later that day, a historic proposal was brought before the council. Humans would serve as the galaxy's emergency response specialists. Their unique relationship with fire and heat, making them ideally suited for situations that other species could not safely handle. In exchange, the council would share advanced technologies and open galactic trade routes to Earth. As Commander Jae-min and Captain Hyun-woo signed the formal alliance document, Jae-min reflected on their first misunderstanding. The panicked report of a ship trailing fire through space. It hadn't been a distress signal at all. It had been humanity's announcement of their arrival on the galactic stage, carried forth on the very flames that had forged their species from the beginning. To new beginnings, said Hyun-woo, raising a glass in the human tradition. To controlled fires, replied Jae-min with new understanding, raising his own glass in return. In the years that followed, whenever new species joined the council and expressed alarm at the sight of human vessels trailing controlled flames, the more experienced members would smile knowingly and explain, "Don't worry, it's just a human starship."